Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. We have back one of my favorite guests, and I think the best authority on white Christian nationalism, Robbie P. Jones. He is CEO of PRRI, which is a think tank that, among other things, does the American Values Survey every year, which is a fascinating source of data on all types of things. Robbie, it's so good to see you. Welcome back.
Thanks, Jen. Glad to be back.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the immigration raids and the disappearing. Um, do evangelicals, frankly, even know about it? Do they care about it? And how does this jive with the injunction? I've talked about it in the Jewish context of not oppressing the stranger. How is that all being perceived?
Yeah, well, I think we do have a poll coming out in a few weeks at PRRI. We'll have some fresher data on that at the end of the month at Trump's 100-day mark. But what we do know coming into the election, I mean, Trump's position on immigration has been clear. He's been telling us he was going to do this, even during, and what we do know is that that had no effect on his support for white evangelical Protestants. And in fact, when we asked even about even looking ahead, we asked in anticipation, would you support, Trump setting up internment camps, for immigrants who are in the country illegally? And we find a majority of white evangelicals saying yes to that statement. So I think that what's really striking to me is that Trump has really been almost solely responsible for, I think, moving white evangelicals from where they were. I think we think back to George W. Bush, right, who was supporting
Yeah,
a bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform that had a path to citizenship, right, in it for, and really has turned him to what I can only say is a very hard-hearted and sort of mean-spirited approach to immigration that is really about the cruelty. And even when we've asked, for example, about as we've seen Governor Abbott doing on the southern border, setting up like razor wire and barriers in the river that might drown people, right? That might cause people, trying to come to the U.S. To lose their lives, right? And we see white evangelicals majority support even for those measures. So I'm afraid that the if we're counting on white evangelicals to pump the brakes, we shouldn't be holding our breath.
got it. Now, when we went through the child separation issue in the first Trump term, we didn't hear so much from white evangelicals, but the rest of the Christian community
Yeah.
did speak out at various junctures. Is that happening now or not? What's the status of the non-evangelical Christian community?
Yeah, well, the only postmortem piece I wrote on the election was at Time Magazine. I called it "What White Christians Have Wrought," and there I didn't say what white evangelicals have wrought. I said what white Christians have wrought. And the reason I said that is because everybody knows that white evangelicals voted 85% for Trump and have voted 8 and 10 every time he's been on the ballot. But I think what people forget is that other white Christian groups, white Catholics and white non-evangelical Protestants, also voted about 6 and 10 for Trump every time he's been on the ballot. Now, the difference is they do kind of get off the Trump train with these more cruel policies. So we do see less support for those kind of cruel policies, child separation, dangerous things at the border, setting up internment camps. You don't see majority support among white Catholics and white non-evangelical Protestants, but they still supported him in the election, right? So there's not a strong opposition, and I think many of them are willing to give him some lead to run with here. It's kind of, we're not seeing massive. The one exception I will say to that is that we are seeing a group of, we saw 27 religious groups sue the Trump administration for going after their ability to provide refugee resettlement, their ability to protect their own congregations from ICE raids in sensitive locations. One of those lawsuits has actually been won. And another one is still kind of winding its way through the court. So there's some sense that they are feeling it actually impinge on their own religious liberty and their own religious mission to provide. And these were Jewish organizations, Christian organizations. It was a broad array of organizations joining that lawsuit.
So this gets to a fundamental question that I know our readers and our viewers ask about other people do. How did Christianity, white Christians in this country, go from followers of Jesus with a obligation, a sense of mission to the poor, to the stranger? How did they go from that to a group of people who really revel in cruelty? And it's now really about power as opposed to faith or grace or mercy. How did that transition happen?
Well, I'm not sure it's been a transition as much as it's been a lifelong battle over two different visions of what Christianity is and who Christians are in the country. We may have no other more powerful symbol of that. When Trump moved his inauguration indoors into the Capitol Rotunda, there's a set of paintings inside the Capitol Rotunda that show you just how old this vision of Christianity is about power and conquest and dominance. There's a painting inside our Capitol that shows Hernando de Soto, quote unquote, discovering the Mississippi. And it was put there in the mid 19th century. It's one of only four paintings. It's 8 foot by 12 foot. It's huge. And so Trump was taking the oath of office inside our rotunda with that painting overlooking him. And what it shows is De Soto and all of his kind of, European white finery with weapons, cannon, and he's barging into an indigenous village, and their weapons are on the ground. They are all kind of half dressed and kind of cowering before him. And in the other corner of the painting, though, so if you got weapons and that in one corner, in the other corner of the painting is a depiction of De Soto and his men raising about a 20-foot cross that they are planting in the ground in the middle of this indigenous village, right? So conquest in the name of Christianity, in the name of Christ. And the fight, I think, over, is the vision about mercy, turning the other cheek, love, compassion, or is it this other vision has been a very real one. And to be honest, the version of Christianity that lands on the shores of this country is the one about dominance, right? It is about power, and this idea so I think that the kind of competing ideas within Christianity and really within our country have been between these two visions that are mutually incompatible. One that says this country, the United States, is a promised land, a divinely ordained promised land for European Christians. That's who we are. Or this other vision that says, no, 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 this is about a country where we are a pluralistic democracy where everyone, regardless of religion or race, stands on equal footing before the law. And there's a Christian way of supporting that vision as well. And we're seeing a real resurgence, I think, in this Christian nationalist vision that's all wrapped up in whiteness as well and white supremacy, kind of rearing its head in a very strong way.
That's fascinating. I think the historical context, the religious history is so vital. Robbie, you had an experience with the United States Naval Academy. One of your books was banned. Tell us what happened and what you took from all that experience.
Well, it was just 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I was my phone started lighting up, and I was like, "What's going on?" My social media channels and people were like, "Dude, your book just got banned at the U.S. Naval Academy." And what was happening is Pete Hegseth was visiting, and ahead of his visit, there was a missive that went out that they went into the academic library and started purging and banning books, literally pulling them off the shelves. And just to kind of so people know, the U.S. Naval Academy is one of the most prestigious academic institutions. It's a four-year college. This is an academic library. And Penn America has now confirmed that this is the first college-level book ban we have seen in modern times in America. So this is a very bright line. It's not just kind of a one-off thing. And when I looked, there's a list that the New York Times published, and my book was number 46 of 381 books pulled off the shelves, all of which had to do with race. So my book was entitled White Too Long, The Legacy of White Supremacy in American Christianity. And it really is a story of my own family growing up. And so it's part memoir, but it's part history and sociology. Tells the story of the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant expression of Christianity in the country, right? whose mission it got started in 1845 to make enslaving others based on the color of their skin compatible with the gospel. That was its mission.
And the book also talks about reconciliation,
Oh yeah,
how
right. No, it's
churches, how blacks and whites came together to reach a common understanding of history and the truth. So the message is in many ways very positive, a
yeah, no, it's
tribute to
about truth,
America.
repairing the damage, reconciliation, healing, how we move forward together. That's the vision of the book. And it was one of seven other religious books that were pulled off all of which have this same kind of message that are about, look, we have to tell the truth about our history so that we can kind of heal in the present and move on to a better future together. That's the kind of things. And what's still on the shelf? Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf is still on the shelf. Charles Murray's racist book, The Bell Curve, that argues that African Americans are mentally inferior to white Americans. The Camp of the Saints, this kind of novel, dystopian novel that's a white supremacist favorite and a favorite of Stephen Miller's in conspiracy theorist, is still on the shelf. So those are the things they left on the shelf while pulling off the shelf things that are really about telling the truth, but telling the truth in the service of, a better America.
That is absolutely remarkable. Did the Navy contact you at all? Did they
No,
have any explanation? Have you had any communication with them?
no explanation, no at all. Maya Angelou's book, why the Caged Bird, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, also got pulled, from the shelf as well, among a bunch of others. So no explanation at all. I do want to give a shout out to the American Academy of Religion, who, these days I want to shout out to every group standing up and resisting. So the American Academy of Religion is the largest academic guild representing religious scholars, and they this week organized a webinar, invited us to come on it, the religion scholars who were banned on the list, and actually had something standing up for academic freedom and pushing back on these book bans. So very grateful for that.
Wow. Well, we will put a link to that in. And all I can say, Robbie, is if you're in any better company than that, I don't know what it would be. So being with people who have addressed race honestly, being with the likes of Toni Morrison and others is fine company to be in.
Oh,
It's just very,
certainly.
very sad that this is the United States military, which has understood the power of inclusion, has been the most successful institution in many ways in terms of both integration, inclusion, diversity,
Yeah.
mutual respect, and that is seemingly being
Yeah.
undone.
Well, one other
Uh,
quick comment on that is that, when I looked at the U.S. Naval Academy's mission statement, it talks about like having men and women. It doesn't mention women actually. And I don't know how long that'll stay in their mission statement, but men and women to become professional officers, and listen to this, of competence, character, and compassion. Those are the things they talk about there. And in their honor code, they say this: midshipmen are persons of integrity. They stand for that which is right. They tell the truth and ensure that the truth is known. They do not lie. So what Hegseth and the U.S. government has done has now violated the U.S. Navy's own honor code by these book bans.
well, powerful, powerful incident. Thank you so much, Robbie. We will have you back again after the survey comes out. I know it's going to be a gold mine of information on race, gender, politics, just the whole thing. So thank you for joining us once again, and we will look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks. Always good to reconnect.
You too.